Hello and welcome to our show, Great Britain in Focus. I'm Charlotte Bromley Davenport.
And I'm Justin Harmer. Earlier last month, the EWTN GB team filmed a conversation about Blessed John Henry Newman. Join them on location in Newman's own library at Littlemore in Oxford to hear more about Newman's life and works.
We join James McCullough in discussion with Catholic film producer Stefano Mazzeo as he describes the challenges and joys of creating historical drama documentaries from a purely Catholic perspective.
Join our on-location team who recently filmed the Evangelium Conference at the Oratory School near Reading and captured opinions and testimonies from participants and key speakers alike.
We recently filmed a conversation between two experts on Blessed John Henry Newman. Father James Bradley, an ordinariate priest, and Dr. Stephen Morgan, a deacon and Newman scholar from the University of St. Joseph in Macau, China. We joined them on a tour of Newman's library, his private chapel and dwelling at Littlemore in Oxford.
The most recent Briton to be canonised was Scottish Catholic John Ogilvie in 1976. And the 40 martyrs of England were canonised in 1970. Today we learn about the life, character and work of the first English saint since then, Blessed John Henry Newman, in the run-up to his canonisation on the 13th of October.
Hello and welcome to this special broadcast for EWTN, the Eternal Word Television Network, on John Henry Newman. My name is Father James Bradley. I'm a priest of the Personal Ordinariate of Our Lady of Walsingham, currently serving as a parish priest in Southampton on the south coast of England. And I'm here in the college in Littlemore with my good friend Dr. Stephen Morgan. Stephen is an expert in John Henry Newman and will be here for a conversation today about the life of Newman, about his importance in the life of the Church today, and also something of a historical overview of Newman's life and importance. It's very good to see you and very good to have you here.
Thank you, Father.
One of the great advantages of being here to film today in the college at Littlemore is that we're surrounded by so many relics, artefacts of the life of Blessed John Henry Newman. And amongst them is this remarkable Victorian desk. It doesn't look too much like a desk, but Victorians would often write standing up. Newman wrote the Apologia Pro Vita Sua in Birmingham at a desk just like this that stands up. But this desk is important because it's also the desk which was used as an altar when Newman was received into the Catholic Church after his 2-day confession by Blessed Dominic Barbary.
It's remarkable to be standing in front of a desk at which one Blessed Dominic Barbary, now in heaven, celebrated Mass in order to bring into the full communion of the Church another Blessed John Henry Newman, a physical reminder of the transmission of the faith from heart to heart.
We're in Littlemore and there's so much here which is of interest and of note, and just further down the room here there's a cabinet with some more artefacts relating to Newman's life, including this, his MA hood. Perhaps you might say a little bit about that.
Yes, his MA hood, his academic hood from the University of Oxford, the Master of Arts hood worn by Anglican clergymen to preach and to conduct services. And this was the hood that Newman was wearing when he preached his last sermon as an Anglican, the sermon known as the Parting of Friends. And at the end of the sermon, he rather dramatically, maybe melodramatically, took off the hood and laid it aside. Several months later, when he became a Catholic, he'd resigned his fellowship of Oriel College. The university formally removed from him the dignity, the degree. He was degraded. He was no longer a Master of Arts, a situation that grieved him, although he understood that it was inevitable. And 30 years later, his old college, Trinity College, made him its first honorary fellow, and he was able to return to the city that he'd spent so much of his time in.
You mentioned earlier that many of Newman's most important events in his life were memorialised in his letters, and the night that he was received into the Catholic Church in this room, he comments that he was received by Blessed Dominic Barbary, and we understand that that was in front of a fireplace. Now, this isn't an original fireplace, but is there to depict the place perhaps where Blessed Dominic Barbary received Newman.
Yes, these buildings have been much altered over the last 160 years or so. Several years ago, a friend of mine who was living here while studying at Oxford, studying Newman, a man called Sean McCullough, painted this to represent the fire, because we think this is the place in which the fire might have been. It's now a doorway, but we think that's where the fire was, and Sean McCullough painted this to remind us of this. I might humorously observe he's a better theologian than a painter.
From shadows to the warmth and the light of the Catholic Church.
Yes, perhaps. No, but I think you're right to say that this is about the light of truth and the warmth of truth. I mentioned to you earlier in conversation how when Newman first came here in 1841, these were really originally coaching stables where horses were kept. And Newman made of it a home, a place where he could live in common with his friends as they worked out what the implications of understanding that faith was. So in that sense, this is like that desk. This is a physical manifestation of the reality of John Henry Newman.
You can see very much how the buildings, you have to mind your head as you come through, but it has the...
I'm rather shorter than you.
How the buildings still have that sort of farmhouse feel to them, really. And I wonder, we were talking earlier about Newman and the incarnation, Newman and the understanding of God made man in Jesus Christ. I wonder if he ever stopped to think about the relationship between the place where he was, this stable, and the place of the incarnation, in a sense. It might seem a little trite to us, but there's something beautiful about that, something romantic perhaps even.
Well, I think so. And we've spoken a great deal about Newman and antiquity, Newman and the Fathers. That's the kind of religious imagination that he encountered in the Fathers, for whom none of these physical accidents were accidents, that they were to be read. It was an enchanted world, a world occupied by God, a world created by God, a world that existed for God and for God's purposes. So perhaps he did reflect upon that. Perhaps I haven't read enough of his meditations and devotions to be too certain about it.
And here as well, there is a sense of this being a home, being a place where study and prayer and all of the things that we've discussed, all the things we know were present in Newman's life could take place. And we're here actually now just at his room,
yes.
The place where he slept, where he read, where he studied, where he prayed. So let's just go inside and take a look. So we've been round the college, we've seen the old stable blocks that have been turned into the rooms, and here we are in Newman's own room. And here on the desk is a letter that he wrote to Cardinal Manning, written on the 8th of October 1845, the day before he was received into the church.
Yes, because Manning at that stage was an Anglican clergyman, like Newman. He was only to become a Catholic 5 or 6 years after Newman. But Newman spent the days before his being received into the church writing to his friends and his family. And Manning, in spite of the fact that the relationship between Manning and Newman was rather tense in later years, Manning had been a friend of Newman's for many years, and he felt the need to explain to his friends what he was doing. And so he writes to Manning, "My dear Manning, I send you just a line, having many letters to write. You'll see it requires no answer. Father Dominic, who is in his way from Staffordshire to Belgium, sleeps here tonight. He does not know of my intention, but I shall ask him to receive me into what I believe to be the one true fold. This will not go till all is over. Ever yours, my dear Manning, very affectionately, John H. Newman. He also wrote to his sister, who was concerned that he would spend the time after his being received here, and she urged him to move on. And here we are in a very simple room. We can perhaps imagine this as a place of some kind of personal prayer, some personal agony, as he faced up to the claims of truth on him, the real assent that he had to give, the power of the concrete. There's another room, another bedroom, the bedroom in the oratory in Birmingham, where as a cardinal he lived, and that's also a room of some prayer and some agony. In fact, after he became a cardinal, because the rituals of the church for cardinals in the Victorian era were so complicated, he had permission to have an altar in his bedroom, and he was able to celebrate Mass there privately, because he wasn't able to celebrate Mass without great fanfare and great ceremony in the oratory church. So one of the lovely things about being here in Littlemore, as in being in the oratory in Birmingham, is that this man who, in some respects, seems very distant to us in time, is sufficiently close for us to have some certainty, some physical certainty about the things that surrounded his life. And in the same way as a saint is not a series of ideas but a real person, the physical artifacts associated with their lives are very, very important. And for Newman, that physical artifact of Christianity is expressed most perfectly in the Blessed Sacrament, to which he had a great, great devotion.
It's very impressive upon me being here, being with these things that belong to Newman. But perhaps as his heart speaks to our heart, we might go to the heart of the Redeemer that I'm sure he would want to send us to in prayer.
Yes, John Henry Newman, pray for us.
We now join James McCullough in a discussion with the Catholic film producer Stefano Mazzeo. Stefano makes historical drama documentaries about key themes in Catholic history in order to portray the truth about the faith.
He speaks about his mission to correct historical errors which have become commonplace belief even in Catholic circles, and about the joys and challenges of making high-quality films on a low budget in order to compete with the secular media.
Hello, I'm James McCullough. I have with me in the studio today Stefano Mazzeo. Stefano is a Catholic film producer, director and screenwriter. Welcome, Stefano.
Good to meet you.
And you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, as I said, you're a Catholic producer, screenwriter, director.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little more about your work?
We started about in 2012 with our first production called Wales, the Golden Thread of Faith.
Right.
I'd pitched this to EWTN 6 years before, and it took that time to get it off the ground. Finding the funding, finding the script, finding everything. It took a long while. But when we finally got it going with Latin Society and St Clair Media came on also to make it a complete co-production, I set down really what I wanted to do from the very start, which was docudramas.
Right.
And we managed to get some Roman reenactors to show how Christianity came to England, came to Britain as it was then. It wasn't England, it was Britain. So we got these Roman legionaries, and we just filmed them. They knew what they were doing. They were ex-British Army. Mm-hmm. They had white legs. And someone said to me once, but they're not Romans, they got white legs. I said, but that's the 14th Legion. They were Germans under Roman officers.
Oh, really good.
And then we did the Crusades, which was really interesting project. We filmed in 7 countries, I think, throughout Europe and also in the Holy Land. So it was really nice. Again, we used reenactors, and that was great fun. A group called the Crusades. They had Templars, they had Hospitallers, so it was great just to film them. Again, they knew what they were doing. I had a script, I knew what battles, and I knew the history of it. I had some great professors behind me, making sure I wasn't telling lies. So they went through the script and saw the programs before EWTN screened it and passed it. Then we did the Inquisition and what the Black Legend is and why the Spanish sometimes get really quite irate with Northern Europeans because, and particularly Hollywood, they just don't tell the truth about what really happened.
Right. Yeah.
After the Inquisition, we did Fatima. Now, Fatima was great fun. We went to Portugal and went to Fatima. We had a great production coordinator down there and a group of local Fatima children and adults who reenact these scenes. And they looked just like the three visionaries. I mean, I was so pleased with them. And I wanted it all done in English. And of course, they couldn't speak English, so they had to rehearse it over and over again, repeating the lines in English so they could actually get it. You know, so we could actually make a credible version of the apparitions.
That's
and we
amazing.
shot Our Lady in England. Our Lady was English, an English actress.
Right.
It was her first role. When I interviewed her on set during the production, she said, well, I'm just starting out as an actress, and I think because I'm playing Our Lady, I'm going to be okay. You know, she's giving me her blessing, so I'm very happy that the first role I've got is playing Our Lady. So she's good Catholic actress. And also another good Catholic actress, another English girl, played Sister Lucia. And she is in our latest production, The Reformation, as Mary Queen of Scots.
Right.
So she played Sister Lucia in Fatima and Mary Queen of Scots in the Reformation series.
So we have the factual nature of your programming,
Yep.
showing the truth, the historical truth. We have the inspiring scenes and the music to inspire and emote.
That's correct.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll work.
What a wonderful combination.
Yeah.
So what's important to you about EWTN's work and its mission?
I think Mother Angelica came along at just the right time. She came along at the time when the secular media was running rampant, telling all their untruths, being, if you like, economical with the truth. And she came along at just the right time and set up EWTN. Because what it's done is given Catholic film producers, directors like myself a platform. Because without EWTN, we're not going to get our stuff on the BBC.
Right.
Because
Sure.
it's just too religious for them. It's also, for some channels, it's probably not the message they want. This kind of orthodox Catholic Christianity. It's not the message that secular media wants to hear. So EWTN needs to be there. So thank goodness for EWTN. Thank Mother Angelica. Thank God for EWTN. Because without EWTN, we would have nowhere to put our films. So everyone, support EWTN, please.
Absolutely.
We need to compete.
Yeah.
Because as I said earlier, throughout history, the church has used the best media. Now the television is in every single person's room. Sometimes every room has a television.
Yeah.
We've got to be in that room with everyone, telling them, presenting the gospel in the best way we can through the television, through the media, through film. And we've got to be as good as the secular media in terms of our production values. You know, we've got to be there.
Absolutely.
If we're not there, the Western world created television. The Catholic Church created the Western world. We've lost the Western world because we were not there with the media when the secularists got hold of the media. We've got a lot of catching up to do. We need the help from ordinary faithful Catholics. So,
I suppose you could say that the television media, the televised media, the screen is in a way like a spiritual weapon. And it's been used by the forces of secularization for so long. Yeah. It's now up to us to take up that sword and to use it for truth.
Yeah. Throughout Catholic history, reformers have come forward, or rather I like to call them reaffirmers. They reaffirmed the faith at times when the church was being attacked by Satan and his followers. People like St. Francis of Assisi, who brought the gospel to the poor,
yes.
to the Sultan, Al-Kamel, actually, in Egypt. He brought the gospel to him. I mean, Al-Kamel threw him out, but St. Francis thought he was going to be martyred, but he was just sent back to the Crusader lines.
Right.
St. Dominic, he brought the the truth of the gospel to the Cathars, who at the time could only see rich, opulent bishops that weren't following the truth. So St. Benedict, St. Dominic rather, he dressed in a simple white habit and brought the gospel to the Cathars. So he reaffirmed the gospel. St. Peter Damian too, he, at a time when there was moral laxity in the clergy, he brought the gospel truth to the lax in the church. So these reaffirmers throughout the history have always been there. The Catholic Church has always reformed herself from within.
Yes,
the problem with the Reformation is, and people like Zwingli and Calvin, is that they didn't reaffirm the faith, they changed the faith. They built churches in their own image, often in competition with each other's, because Luther turned on Zwingli. He didn't quite like what Calvin was coming out with, and they all fought amongst each other. Now you've got about 44,000 Protestant denominations, you know.
Well, Stefano, I see you as one of these reaffirmers. Televised media is a way to evangelize, it's a way to reaffirm the faith. So I think you are a reaffirmer, and I would say carry on the good work.
Thank you. Well, that's what EWTN are. They're reaffirmers of the faith.
It's good to speak to you, Stefano. I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
The 16th Evangelium Conference took place recently at the Oratory School near Reading, and our team were there to capture the event. The theme of the conference was explaining the Catholic faith in the modern world, and it is largely attended by people in the 18 to 35 age bracket.
We spoke to some of the young participants who were very enthused about the messages they were hearing, and also to some of the key speakers at the event, who engaged their audience in an intelligent, amusing and compassionate way about the topic of evangelization.
So, Pavel, is this your first time at Evangelion?
It is, yes.
And what is it that brought you here?
So I heard about this many years ago, and I've been intending to come here. So when I found out that it's happening this weekend, I booked my place and here I am.
And what brought you back to Evangelium? Or why did you come in the first place? I don't think I've ever asked you this question.
Oh, I think I was looking for ways to deepen my faith, and at the time I wasn't living in London, so there wasn't very much going on, and I heard about it. I must have been through some university friends, and I thought it would be a really nice opportunity to give it a go. And I didn't actually know anyone when I was coming, and I came here and I met you, which was very exciting, and there was a couple of other people I knew from various other things I didn't expect to see, so actually it was a really lovely time. And I remember going to the small chapel with one of the friends I'd done some voluntary work with, and I didn't realise she'd be here, and her saying, let's say a rosary together, and it was just like a really, really beautiful experience. So I always remember that, and I really enjoyed it for that. Yeah.
And was there any of the talks which you have enjoyed, anything that struck you?
My favourite was the talk on discernment, because I think that's relevant to all of us at any point, really. And
no matter what state of life.
But in particular for me right now, I think that's a very... Well, it's a hot topic.
Okay, so we're joined here by the wonderful Kerry Christopher, who's just recently created a new website, Clarity Life Consulting, and I understand it's about discernment. Can you talk a little bit about that website?
Yeah, absolutely. I started this because as a young person, I felt like I didn't have a lot of direction in discernment. I felt like, there were books written, but nobody was really speaking to me in the particular difficulties that I was facing, whether I was discerning what kind of studies to engage in, or what kind of guys to date, or where I was going to live or go to school. So all of these questions, I felt like I really wanted some guidance, and so I began to write the things that I wish that younger me could have heard.
And what brought you to Evangelium this weekend?
Well, apart from my parish priest, who insisted that we all come, I was really drawn to the idea of spending a whole weekend with such, wonderful, lively bunch of young Catholics who are very passionate about their faith, and the chance to hear some excellent speakers, because there is so much need for more knowledge. I think, like a lot of other young people who grew up in the faith, but who weren't formed much after confirmation, there's a real thirst to learn more about the faith and to discover all of its many facets and delights, and to be strengthened then to go on and to share that with other people.
So building on that, what are you going to share from this weekend in the workplace or back in the parish? What do you think you're going to take home from this weekend of formation?
I think I'm going to take away a lot of confidence about
my own ability to find the knowledge I need, because I think for a lot of young Catholics it's a case of feeling that you have the passion and you have the love of Christ, but you don't always know where to go and find the information you need, and to bring that to different audiences as well. So I have friends from all different backgrounds, different Christian traditions, and from no faith at all, and knowing how to speak to them and meet them where they're at, as they say, and accompany them and bring them into the church. So yeah, I think that's my main takeaway.
And what would you say is like the ideal to look for in a marriage partner? What would be like your top 3?
Okay, wow. I think character, right? Their character. Are they a virtuous person? Are they striving after virtue? Obviously none of us is perfect, but we'd like to see that someone is striving after virtue if that's something that we value. And I think a shared sense of mission is also really important for us as Catholics. And then a question of how well do they love the people in their lives?
I guess marriage, and a real attempt by people to look to discern on, the lead up to a really strong and a foundation for a strong marriage in God. Just by being a family, you start to evangelize literally through your life. So
who's your favourite thinker in philosophy or theology?
Oh, that's really hard. Well, will I be cheating if I say Fr Andrew Pinsent, because I think he's amazing.
and he founded Evangelium, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he's here.
Evangelium is a nice thing, but it only lasts about 48 hours, and then we go back to our real lives,
back to the world.
to this outside world, yes, and it's easy to forget. So you've got that parable about sowing various seeds in various places, and it's what do you do that when a time of hardship comes, or when another reality comes? What do you do to remember what really matters and what ought to be at the top of your priority list?
And how do you think the seed needs to take root? How do you make that happen so you can bear fruit after this weekend?
Well, the obvious answer is prayer. That's a good start, a safe answer. So I think this is a great opportunity to see that I'm not the only person out there.
No man is an island.
Who has these sorts of views. And you think, well, I'm maybe not lonely, but am I the only one? The last man standing. And it's very refreshing to come to events like that and see that actually no, there are dozens and dozens of people who think along the same lines.
Thank you for joining us. Full versions of these interviews can be found on our website. And please remember that we rely on your donations to continue bringing you great British programming.
Please visit our website, ewtn.co.uk, for further details on how to donate. Do join us next time. Goodbye and God bless.